I'm Sophia, and this is the ultimate podcast for celebrating all things wonderful about our beautiful island. Welcome to Destination Cyprus. Hi everyone, welcome back to Destination Cyprus. I'm a little bit giddy, I'm very excited today because we have a guest who's taken me back to years and years of wandering around London on my own, buying tickets to watch West End theatre. And he's been a beast, a phantom, and I would say also an inspector, a little bit of everything. Earl Carpenter, welcome.
What an entrance.
What an entrance. You're a little bit of a beast.
Yes.
A little bit. Where's your mask?
Thank you for that. No, I'm not going to be wearing a mask around Cyprus. But thank you very much. You have made me sound incredibly old, though, so that's not a good start. No, that's fine.
Have you also been a witch?
I was a devil.
A devil?
Yes.
So,
indeed.
For our audience, just to clarify things a bit, because that's a little bit confusing.
Very, very quickly.
I mean, you've got over 25 years. Oh, I've done it again.
Yeah, you have. Actually, it's 30. I'll make it even worse.
30 years experience in theatre, namely, I mean, obviously a West End name.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing for us to be able to welcome you to this podcast, because obviously in Cyprus, the calibre of cultural entertainment and the arts that we've had over the years, it's definitely improving. But to be able to welcome somebody of your calibre to Cyprus for what is hopefully a fruitful journey going forwards is very exciting. So I'm going to let you explain a little bit about your history, because you've, aside from obviously lots of West End productions and productions all over the world, because I have to say here, this blew me away actually. So it's been Switzerland, Paris, Germany, Austria, Scandinavia, Sweden, Dubai, Japan, Toronto, Broadway in New York, Beijing, Shanghai, Macau, Singapore. So you've been around in your 30 years.
I have in my 30 years, yes. Haven't I just?
But it's just fascinating to me, obviously a fascinating career. And I'd love to know more. What got you into theatre, and particularly musical theatre?
Yeah, well, I think when you put it like that, it's fascinating to me as well, because there comes a time, right now, I'm looking at a bit of a migration anyway, from having been a performer for 30 years to kind of looking at what the next chapter is. So when it is spelt out like that, it is extraordinary to kind of go, gosh, yeah, I've been incredibly lucky over the years. And it did start off very much kind of at home, back in Ringwood in Hampshire, just enjoying doing drama at school more than anything, and realizing that drama was a very safe space. It was a very non-judgmental arena, which was good because I hated all the other lessons that I did. I struggled immensely at school with a bit of dyslexia and stuff like that, and just not being able to really engage in the type of work that we were given. But I did find this incredible new lease of life every time I went to drama school or went to drama class. And through the persistence of my drama teacher, I was given many opportunities to kind of do extra kind of outside of school workshops or little theatre groups, and then slowly got into the Amdram world and just kept doing all of that. It was never my kind of initial route for me to go down the kind of theatre avenue, but it just panned out that way. And I think at a time when musicals were also finding their feet commercially, and as they were in the kind of the 80s, the mid-80s, which is when I left school. So by that time, Les Misérables had just landed in 1985. Then Phantom of the Opera landed in 1986. And of course, Cats and Starlight and Miss Saigon. And I found myself being very drawn to that world, very drawn to the kind of storytelling through music, courtesy of my father, actually, giving me a double cassette, do you remember those things, of Jeff Wayne's The War of the Worlds.
Wow.
I used to live in Saudi Arabia when I was younger, and I remember him buying me this little cassette, and I used to listen. I was absolutely in awe of it. This
Mm.
incredible sense of. Um, I suppose it's really difficult to kind of explain without seeming an absolute madman, but it just transported me in a way that I never realized that you could. This kind of audio sensual type of different world
Mm.
that it just kind of took you on. And it was, and I just, from that point of view, I just then just kept enjoying listening to music. And then I got into that world of actually, I enjoyed singing.
Mm.
And I just kept copying Michael Crawford, who was obviously the original Phantom. And I just kept doing that. And next thing I knew, I was creating, having kind of left college. I did, thankfully, because of my drama teacher, and although I failed every single exam except for art and drama, she managed to get me a place at Bournemouth and Paul College on a 2-year theatre studies course. We weren't allowed to talk about musicals because our 2 lecturers hated musicals. They were proper actors.
Snubbing it, of
They
course.
were former Royal Shakespeare caliber. They were from that world, but it was an incredible school because it kind of taught us everything about the environment, not just about performing. You had to learn props, you had to learn lighting, sounds, scenic design, everything. You had to do everything, stage management. So it was a real good foundation for what was about to come next. I faffed around after college, selling solar heating, pensions, doing all of that. And then just found myself kind of gravitating back to a world of actually just setting, when it came about from, I went to an open audition for Les Misérables, which was a show that I obviously in those days was very influenced by. And I went up to London and did this, as we used to call it, a cattle call, where, the world descends upon the Palace Theatre where Les Mis used to be. You sing your 16 bars of the best bit of your, song that you've chosen, and then you're either lucky enough to carry on or you're not. And at the time I wasn't lucky enough. So, but I do remember sitting with a friend of mine in Covent Garden, and I was saying, I really want to get back into this, So she said, well, do it yourself. Just do it yourself. And kind of, I knew what she meant, which was very much, let's go back to Bournemouth, which is where I was kind of doing all my Amdram stuff. Because the thing about amateur dramatics, if you weren't about 107, you weren't able to do a principal role because you have to have been with the amateur dramatic company for years before they allow you.
Hair and makeup must love that.
Well, exactly. But and also, some whippersnapper turning up, taking all the lead roles. No. So we decided, there was a group of us actually, we were all kind of in between what we're going to do. Some were going to theatre school, some didn't know what to do, but loved theatre, and we all happened to love musicals. So we started up our own little theatre company down in Bournemouth called the Big Little Theatre Company back in 1991. And we got together what was then a relatively new concept, which was songs from the shows. So we decided to get the cream of the youth in Bournemouth, get them all together under one umbrella, and basically sell a couple of nights at my local school that had a stage of the songs from the shows. And we had no idea. We had no idea this was going to work. You know what it's like being young as well. You have such bravado, don't you?
Great,
You really just don't care. You
Courage.
don't care. Absolutely. And you kind of go, where does that go? Where does that go? Why does that leave us? And we did it. We did kind of 3 shows, which sold out, which was just bonkers. And that kind of gave us not that we needed any more confidence, but it gave us the encouragement to kind of go, we've got something here. This kind of environment for youth, which was really sparse in those days. And I think it's come full circle again, which is a bit weird, which I'm sure we'll talk about later on. But it's what was just great is that we had found this world where all of a sudden, and then people wanted to come and join us, and just we made it bigger. So we decided that we'll do a bigger musical in a big venue, which was the Winter Gardens in Bournemouth, which is no longer. It's a car park now,
Oh,
unfortunately.
sad.
Well, it is sad because we were actually part of the Save the Winter Gardens campaign, so that went well. Didn't quite work, but never mind. But we basically created this huge company. There's about 90 of us in it, big orchestra, all amateur dramatics, all amateurs, and we just created this extraordinary 5 days at the Winter Gardens. We did West Side Story, which was everyone thought we were bonkers. The artistic director of the Bournemouth International Centre then said, "I will eat my hat if this works." Evidently, we sent him a hat at the end of it because it did work. But a very good friend of mine who I adore and we're still very much in touch with each other, he wanted to do our marketing. And we were so like, what's marketing? No idea what that is. What is that? So he took that on. He worked at W.H. Smith's in Bournemouth. He has now since gone on to be marketing director for Sainsbury's, for Debenhams. He's now the marketing director for Freeman's. And it's amazing how things, kind of spiral in that respect. And that was it. So we did a couple of years of this theatre company, but I still had the yearning to do it professionally. And those were the days where you had to do your 40 hours to get your equity card and all of that. So I did. I decided to leave the theatre company and basically, give it a go. And I did. And with a little bit of sadness, I say this, because Bill Kenwright, who gave me my first two big jobs, unfortunately passed away a couple of weeks ago through just his fight with cancer, unfortunately. Didn't necessarily went well. But Bill gave me my very first two extraordinary jobs, which were in musicals. First one was Robin, Prince of Sherwood, which was just like Joseph
without
the coat and prancing around Sherwood Forest, basically
in tights.
Pretty much Marks and Spencer tights. Actually, it was Marks and Spencer's dyed long johns.
It's all right. We've done our product placement now.
We've done that.
We've listed the others as well, so it's
okay. So it was, and that was it. And as they say, that was
the rest is history.
Yeah, and that was 1993.
Tell me about after 1993 though, because I heard I want to know that moment when the big break came, when you were an understudy.
Okay.
Is that wasn't 93?
No, because again, those days there was an appreciation of apprenticeship. You had to understand that there was a process to get to even to get into a West End show. You had to really do your work. You had to graft. And graft I did. And I went off and did loads and loads of bits and pieces. And it was in 1996, I was just doing pantomime with Leslie Joseph, Birds of a Feather and all of that.
Love.
And I had an audition for Les Mis come in. So I did it, didn't really think anything about it. And it was literally the day before Christmas Eve, my then agent rang me and said, so after Panto, he said, do you fancy being in Les Mis? And I was like, wait, what now?
What? Say what?
I'm sorry? And that was my first West End show. So after good 4 years of doing, stumbling around doing anything and everything, then all of a sudden came a little bit of a foundation, which was Les Mis. So I did that, and then towards the end of that, all of a sudden, I just seemed to hit it at the right time. And I really do believe that now when I look back at it. I think I was just lucky enough to have been born at the right time, to have landed at the right time in this huge kind of uprising of the most extraordinary musicals. And that was when I auditioned for Disney's Beauty and the Beast, which happened at the Dominion Theatre back in May of 1997. And I, oh yes, well, is this now when we discuss?
Oh no,
this?
did I miss you by?
You did. I think that was June. So what I'm pointing at this little glass menagerie
it's my jar, menagerie.
your jar of hundreds and hundreds
Magic
of
jar.
show tickets, and the first one I picked up was Beauty and the Beast, and I was in it then, and I had a really bizarre conversation at the end of my last audition for the Disney group and the kind of creatives, and they sat me down and said, look, this is what we would like to do with you. It's a little weird, it's an unheard of type of role, but we'd like you to be, well, would you consider being Beast, that standby to Beast and Gaston? You wouldn't be in the show, so you would spend a lot of time in your dressing room, but we feel that you are in a good place to be both roles.
Oh wow.
So I'm like, well, why would I say no to that? And I did, and I stayed with that show for 3 years. And I actually
without a mobile phone in the dressing room.
Without a mobile
I mean,
phone.
imagine though. Yeah, but the dedication.
So I actually got to a point where I was sharing a dressing room with a very well known choreographer and director now, a guy called Nick Winston. We shared our dressing room together, and we used to cut out lots of things from magazines, and we ended up sellotaping all around the dressing rooms. And I ended up going into this kind of wall art phase where I would draw massive dragons on the walls, and the theatre would let me do it, which is just bizarre. That's how I kind of, well, some
got
say
through your 3 years.
Well, I probably didn't, if that's how I ended up doing it. But then I ended up at the end of those 3 years actually taking on the role of the Beast. And that kind of all of a sudden put me in, I'm a principal
recognition, yeah,
in the West End. But now we're getting, even though you might think that's the moment,
no,
but for me it's not the moment.
I know.
The moment was when I went to I said something before we started recording this, which is I'm sure we'll come back to this as well, about sidestepping. Career in theatre has to be about how do you achieve longevity, and it's not just about kind of going for one role or one position. It's about seeing what's around you, seeing who's good, seeing who's liked, is kind of knowing, okay, well, I'll just nuzzle in just here for now, and then I'll. So I had one of those moments, and having played the Beast, people expected me to kind of go and do another principal role. But at that time, Cameron McIntosh, who is obviously one of the world's biggest producers, who I've worked with many, many times, was putting together a brand new show, which was a musical based on the film The Witches of Eastwick, which we know with Jack Nicholson. And so this was going to be huge and massive. Ian McShane was our devil, and we had the most incredible lineup of witches, the three girls. And I went in as all they could offer me was ensemble and second cover to Darryl. Second cover to Darryl Van Horn. Now my agent thought I was mad to kind of not carry on this kind of path of playing principals. I said, but it's a brand new show. I don't think Cameron will produce another brand new show again, and evidently he didn't. And you get all the extra incredible things with the brand new show. You get the cast album, you get, a great big party and all that type of stuff. So that's what I decided to do. Anyway, cut to 10 months into Drury Lane, the first cover didn't want to do first cover anymore. He found it all a bit too just too much. So we swapped. So I got bumped to first cover. The show was always going to run a certain amount of time in Drury Lane, and then it was going to reopen at the Prince of Wales. And so we had 2 weeks off, and then we had 2 weeks of technical before we opened at the Prince of Wales. So it was kind of a new version as well, because it had to fit the smaller venue. And we did the first week, and Ian Ian was struggling quite a bit with health in those days, and he disappeared from rehearsals for a little while. So being first cover, I then started doing the rehearsals. We then got into week 2, and it was the Wednesday, and we were opening on the Friday. And I remember a very dear friend of mine, who was that show's resident director, came into my room, said, "You okay with all the changes and stuff?" I went, yeah. He said, "Good, yeah, it's great. No, you're doing well. Great. So you'll be all right to open the show on Friday?" And yeah, another one of those.
Another one.
Wait,
Say
what now?
what moments?
He said, yeah. He said, "Between you and me," he said, "I don't think Ian will be coming back."
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, "Okay, so what does that mean?" He said, "Well, you." I went, "Wait, what now?" He said, "Yeah, we think that this would be good." So I then remember walking back onto the stage at the Prince of Wales, and this was the first time I was kind of really thrust into kind of Cameron's radar. And I remember Cameron running down to down the auditorium to the pit and looked over the pit and said, "Right, dear, let's see what you can do."
No pressure.
No, none whatsoever. And that, as they say, that was, I
Wow.
think, the moment that, and I became, I think, one of those first, we see a lot of it, and certainly over the last 5 years or so, of a lot of attention given to understudies who saved the show. And I was kind of one of those back in 2000 where that happened. And it was that, I think, that really then gave me the gear change into what then became, you know, a good 20 years. And I've been so lucky to basically just know instinctively to say yes to a job or say no to a job, or kind of go, "I'd like to do that," rather than the one you're offering. And just,
Do you really believe it's luck, though? Because, I mean, if you tell this story to a millennial, they'll be like, "Oh, I'm not waiting 3 years to do something." It sounds
no,
like
that's
you...
interesting, isn't it?
No,
That's
you
another
had,
conversation.
but you had a strategy, and you kind of stuck around long enough to learn the craft, and
Yeah.
also to be a valued team member, because you weren't just turning up as the talent, were you?
No, and
So...
I actually lived by what was something that was given to us going back to the Bournemouth and Paul Jellicoe Theatre, it was called. And our 2 incredible teachers there, and they always said to us, "Do not wait for your agent to call. Do not be one of those people just to sit there and wait. Get on with it." Which is why I then tried to find a way of understanding and navigating, and how do you create longevity in the most extraordinary, fickle world that we live in. And that was the only way I could do it, by going, I just need to keep things going and have conversations myself. I also then started, from obviously the early days with the little theatre company, I kept producing. So as a sideline, I always produced. So I always did concerts. I always did those things that if I didn't have a job for 6 weeks, we'd create a concert, or we'd do something. So there was this kind of torrent of work. I just would never give up. I would never let up. And it became very much my mantra of, one, talking to everybody. You know, any theatre that I went to, go and talk to the management. Go and talk to all that world. You know, the world that actually I might be going back to, because I'll be going, "Hi, do you remember me? I was in this show." You know, and that's kind of what I've always done. And I've always done that with regards to, I remember sitting in oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the hotel, but it was in Doha. And I was looking at this magazine, and it was talking about a new general manager of the Madinat Jumeirah in Dubai. And she wanted to create this new, they had this 2 massive 3,000-roomed hotels. And in the middle was a souk with a theatre.
Oh, wow.
And she really wanted, so I thought, and this was in the days of, we could email now. That was all very exciting. So I sent her an email and said, "Hello, you know, this is me. This is what I've done. We do concerts and stuff." And lo and behold, she actually wrote back and said, "I would be really interested." So that became a 5-year relationship of creating kind of songs from the shows in Dubai. So I've always made it my mission to not just be the talent, to actually understand, well, okay, this is going to work for me if I talk to this person, or and then the more stuff you do, you also realize that you have value as well to other entities and other companies, and actually to be able to kind of go, well, look, I'm not this particular great big star that you kind of think I am. I'm not. That's not me. Yes, I'm lucky enough to have a massive CV, and I do have one. I think I have one of the largest CVs, other than my immediate peers, like Ramin Karimloo and John Owen Jones, and all these great guys that I've worked with over the years and still work with. I've been, and since you're reading off that massive list of where I've been around the world, that is, I suppose, because I've just chatted to everybody and said, but what can we do? What can we do? Can we do something?
But you love what you do, though.
I
and
do love what I
that makes
do.
a huge difference. I mean, I love this quote that I found on the website. I doubt I have ever seen a more morally conflicted Javert than the one Carpenter gives us, and that was obviously in Les Mis. And I wanted to ask you about that, actually, because it's with musical theatre. Do you engage? I mean, you must do, obviously, but is it stepping into a role for 2 hours flat? That must be quite tasking on you. But then I have never, I mean, my sister's an actress, so I know the theatre side of it, but I can't imagine what it's like when you're combining that with the vocals as well, because that must be quite physically tasking for you as well.
It's an interesting question, and the only way I can answer that is like it's more about stepping into a picture. So I have a very different. I'm very engineered as a performer, and I actually put that down to a note that I was given by Hal Prince, who was a most extraordinary pioneer of musicals. He was the original director of Phantom of the Opera, Evita, all these massive, massive, massive shows. And he said to me once, he came to see me while I was playing Phantom in London's West End, and he said to me, "Earl," he said, "you have to understand. You're dressed as the Phantom. You wear the Phantom's mask. You're in the program as the Phantom. The show is called Phantom of the Opera. Those people refer to you as the Phantom." He said, "Stop being the Phantom. Stop competing with the pictures I've directed." So as a performer, I then go from performing to what is going on behind me? What is that picture that the audience are looking at? What is that? Because all of that has already been decided. The arc of the show has already been decided. Why the orchestrations are written like they are, the choice of instruments, the way that the lighting works at certain moments, the way the set works, the costumes, all of that. It's already been decided, and then they go and ruin it by putting an actor in it. Because an actor comes in and goes, "Well, I think my character would do this," and which you want to go, "No, it wouldn't." Of course it wouldn't, because you're not being aware of what's going on behind you. And that's how I've always kind of now invested in the shows I do. There was a time where I would put my all into it, but it's wasteful. It's not economical. And to be able to do particular roles, 8 times a week, you've got to find a way of being able to kind of go, okay, I've got to fudge this somehow, otherwise I will just blow myself out. So you find a way of being able to manage what you feel is an emotion, but actually I can't expend it personally, so I have to physically find, using everything else at my disposal. It's like they say, it's not the person who turns up as Inspector Javert that makes Inspector Javert Inspector Javert. It's how the people around that character respond to him. Do you know what I mean?
No, I do.
If a policeman,
it's amazing because people are so used to film, which is such a different art, isn't it?
Completely.
And this is kind of like the whole set, the whole emotion. It's all about.
Well, I mean, is it though?
I don't know.
Well, actually, no, now.
But I imagine if someone said to you, take 1, take 2, take 20 while you're trying to sing
Yeah.
the theme song of the Phantom.
Well, we can't. I mean, we do that during rehearsals, but you go through that
but on
process.
stage, you
No,
can't
not on
obviously
stage.
ruin the emotion, can you?
No. Well, you can if you accidentally forget the words, which I do a lot. But it's. I don't actually. There's not a great deal of difference between, because if you think about particular films, I mean, they have an orchestral audioscape going on. There's already a story.
Course,
I mean, think about. I mean, I love Braveheart, the film, Mel Gibson. Take the music out, it's a shocking film. Put the music in,
it does, of course.
Incredible.
But the poor people are filming it without the music there. That's the problem.
I know. So from our point of view, we have it all there, which is why I think some actors complicate things. They just, we talk about, when you've put your heart and soul into a show, why don't I get a good applause? But the nights that you've phoned it in, you get a great applause because you've not complicated it.
Okay,
You've sat in the picture, just doing what you're supposed to do, which is just deliver the lines.
What's it like, I mean, in comparison, because you've done a lot of these other, obviously, filmed events like concerts and anniversaries with the BBC Orchestra and the Philharmonic. How is that different for you? So when the costumes are off and you're just standing singing to an audience, is it different?
It is different. It is a little different. The first one of sheer size was the Les Mis 25th anniversary, which we filmed at the O2, London's O2, which was just the most extraordinary chapter. So I was employed. So I'd gone into London as Javert. Having played Phantom also in which I finished, I think it was 96. I think I finished it. No, not 96. 2000 and do you know? I have no idea.
It's all right.
At some point in the last 30 years.
Yeah.
But then I was asked if I would originate Javert in this new 25th anniversary production that now is the one that is favoured by Cameron. So we did a massive, most extraordinary tour of this new version. We went to Paris, we went to the Châtelet, where we sat for 6 weeks, and then we finished the tour by returning to the Barbican Theatre, where Les Mis obviously was first created. At the end of that, we all moved into the O2 to do this extraordinary 25th anniversary production. And I was the bishop. I played the bishop in this concert, and it was just. I mean, not only I'd never been in the O2, and walking to the O2 with 25,000 people looking at you was just bonkers. Then you just had the rest of the world of, there was like 300 performers on stage. Your mug was being up on a great big screen, and it was also being televised live around the world to every single cinema that was streaming it. And it just moments like that are just like, I do remember I was very nonchalant, and because I'd never played the bishop, but Cameron said, "Oh, you think you said?" I can't remember what he said. It was some, I'm sure, very inappropriate comment. Richard Chamberlain, that's it. He said I look like Richard Chamberlain. We'll just leave it at that. But I do remember not really thinking much about it, and there was a moment where I thought I was going to be Javert. So we had what's called a sitzprobe, which is a rehearsal where the cast and the orchestra come together for the first time. And Norm Lewis is a very good dear friend of mine, American actor, did a lot of stuff on Broadway. He was Javert for this, but he was losing his voice on the sitzprobe, which is the Friday before this manic weekend. Anyway, that evening, Thomas Schomburg, who's Michel Schomburg's son, and he wrote Les Mis. Thomas rang me and said, "So Earl, Norm, as you heard, was losing his voice."
Dommage.
Yeah, I went, So we think, it would be good, put you on standby. Again, another one of those. Wait, what now? So I was then on standby for Javert, which was just crazy. Anyway, turned
That
out
doesn't end well either, does
no,
it?
not really. But that was fine. And yeah, and it was just, but you do become very aware that all of a sudden there's these cameras on you. And we did it again with the Les Mis All-Star concert that we did just before COVID. Alfie Boe was Jean Valjean, Michael Ball as Marius, and you know, a great selection of other incredible performers doing this brilliant concert version of Les Mis, which is also going to go on a massive world tour end of next year, which would be incredible. But you are just very aware that you've got 14 cameras pointing at you. So you forget about the audience. All of a sudden you go into telly mode, you know. But it's actually not that dissimilar to how you should be anyway. You know, because everything is designed in a way that you are seen when you are the one talking. You know, they also design theatres with the seats facing the stage, so you don't have to go and go, "Ooh, it's me, hello." So yeah, but again, it's that thing about just doing so many different things gives you the confidence just to be able to kind of go, "Okay, I can deal with this."
And I mean, where did because I know that, like you said in the beginning, you're doing the producing, you're doing the acting, the theatre, and you've gone into photography as well.
Oh, yes.
There's a little bit of design work happening. You're doing a little bit of everything now, but it feels like the world's your oyster, in the sense that now, with the experience behind you, you get to pick and choose, which must be a very different dynamic. You're not sitting in a changing room waiting, are you?
I wouldn't say that I'm still not in control, even though I, in theory, can put my skills to use in many different areas. I'm not in control. I still have to rely on someone giving me the job. And there's, you know, even with my producing, you still have to have this compliant relationship with the venue or another producer who's going to pay for the venue. You know, there's still this, it's still not completely in my control. I still have to play the game. There's still boundless conversations that have to happen. And again, but this is where I find it really interesting that over the years that I've managed to travel a great deal, and that's exposed me to so many different cultures, you know. And I think living in Saudi Arabia as a child as well, that would just kind of gave me that intrigue about, for me, and particularly the arts and culture, it's not just about being in London's West End. And I know a lot of people are, oh, you must do a show in London's West End. And I know I've been lucky enough to have had that opportunity. But you do get to that point of going, it's not just about that. It is just about trying to find a way. The world is very much your stage, you know. And when you can get to that point of going to these incredible countries all around the world and doing stuff in, and then you start going, well, can I do more here? Because we've got this scenario at the moment so I'm involved with this non-replica version of Phantom of the Opera, which we did in Italy, we've just finished in Milan. So I was in Milan before I came to Cyprus. We're going to Monte Carlo for Christmas, as you do, to do
Such tough life.
I know, but I've actually just taken on the responsibility of resident director as well as being in the company, which again is just mind-blowing.
Yeah,
They're kind of prepared to trust me with such a thing, but I love it. But again, it's that working with Italians, working with Europeans, I find so much more gratifying. They're more enthused. They're where we were like 25, 30 years ago.
and that means you can be part of something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's a dynamicness about it. There's a want to get things on about it. I think we've become so complacent back at home, if I'm truly honest. Particularly when you have been in a show for a long time, you forget about actually.
Natural, isn't it?
yes, it is natural. It's not acceptable,
No.
but it is natural. So to actually then be reminded of where we were, 30 odd years ago, where we were hungry to do it. I'll do it.
Yeah.
I will do it. So to have had that kind of reinvigorated in me has been really interesting. But I'm now, where I would have been kind of, fudging my CV and saying, yes, I've been in this and this and this and this. Now I'm kind of like playing it down, kind of going, yeah, no,
I really want
it's
to
about
do
now.
this.
It's
Yeah.
about now. Let's talk about
Okay.
now. But at least I know I can come at it with 30 years experience, doing all the things I've done, and people know what I've done.
Yeah.
And so it's actually kind of quite nice to kind of go, I want to help you. I want to empower you. I want to, what can we do? How can we get this communicated in a different way? How can we re-engage? How can we re-engage culture? And how can we, and it's about synergy. The synergy, it's not, where we're very lucky to be in the West End. We are very lucky to be in one of the few things that England is
You're
better
really good
known
at
for.
cricket, aren't you?
I don't know. I don't follow cricket. I was forced to watch grandstands.
I love
as a
that
child.
whole we created a game that we can't win.
Yeah, but we didn't create
But we
it.
did
Do
it
it?
anyway,
No. And yes, I mean, thankfully, arts and culture and a little bit of science, we are world leaders at. And I'll take that.
Yeah.
But we do forget that actually there are a lot of countries that don't have the kind of investment, they don't have the type of environments that can give people what is the opportunities or the experience or the training that is theoretically needed for, let's say, that migration, let's say from Cyprus to in a West End show or a Broadway show. So if we can help facilitate that by at least creating a project where, we are integrating in a way that just gives people, and it's not about being patronizing about it, and I really do use the word to empower very cautiously, because I don't want it to be patronizing. But I think if I can give someone a little window into how I managed to still be employed, then I will do that. And if I can see where people are struggling, then I will help. And if I can see, well, we need to make this happen. I won't get paid? Fine, doesn't matter. Let's just make this happen. Because it's also about the longevity thing again. I won't do one thing. I'll always do something with the knowledge that we'll do it again next year.
Bit of a vision.
We'll do it the year after, and we'll keep going.
Fab. Well, I think that it's a great time now then to ask you. Oh.
Hello.
What brings you to Cyprus?
Oh, I have no idea.
I tell you what, before you do tell us what brings you to Cyprus,
Yes.
I loved the way you kind of led to this point now, because I obviously come from a family with great love for musicals. I grew up watching musicals. And when I was at university, my grandma used to meet me every Saturday, and we'd go to the West End and we'd watch something. Hence, all the tickets there.
All of them.
Very special to me, because it's all my most treasured memories with my mum, my uncle, my grandma. And then, of course, my sister. Can you imagine my sister telling a Cypriot father that I'm going to do theatre studies? He nearly had a heart attack.
Okay.
He did not. But it's kind of... I would say we're a good example of exactly what you were saying, that it was very difficult to breed a culture that was ready to embrace the arts, theatre. I mean, when I left Cyprus in 96, compared to where Cyprus is now, completely different world. There's so much more going on now. There's a broader acceptance. I know a lot of other Cypriot children going abroad to study, whether it's musical theatre or drama. So on that note, because you've been a patron as well, which you can tell us a little bit about, tell me what brought you here, because I know you've got plans in the near future, so it'd be very exciting to tell the audience.
I think it is very much about what I was saying earlier about working with Europeans, working with different culture, it gives me the opportunity to kind of remember and to kind of rekindle the love of why I'm involved with this world.
Yeah.
And always being someone who looks at magazines and kind of go, oh, they've got a great venue. I wonder, and do a bit of due diligence and see what's been going on in that region, if anything has been going on that I could potentially offer. And that was very much the case here. I was aware of this incredible patron that you have here, actually, and again through her father, his kind of love of art and culture here in Cyprus over many years. A very dear friend of mine did Cats here. He was the conductor of that show, and it was very interesting. And it's actually a conversation that I've had with Cameron a few times, because Cameron obviously comes from a little island, not a million miles from here, but it just fascinates me when you get these little environments where also people just don't think about going to. Producers don't think about going to, somewhere like Cyprus. I mean, you kind of think, well, why would you not? Because there
It's an
are
opportunity, isn't it?
there is an opportunity, and when you've got, okay, it's not a massive population of expats, but it's a significant population. And then you've got the bases and stuff like that. You've got a lot of English-speaking people here, but you also have a lot of Cypriots that speak English as well. And you just kind of think, well, when was the last time a musical came here? And then you find out, and it was years ago, really, of something that was brought over. So it was literally through that. And I did have another project, which I presented the very incredible Melina Shinny, who is why we're kind of talking today, with a project called Three Phantoms, which was something I created 15 years ago, and it is what it says on the tin. Three guys who've played the Phantom of the Opera. It's a very kind of very silly, very fun kind of all about the camaraderie between these three guys. It's kind of a little bit like Morecambe and Wise meets the Royal Variety performance, that type of thing. But obviously there was a thing about, but if it's, there are certain environments where it needs to make sense, and this is where I sometimes I run away with things, because you do kind of think, well, what does Three Phantoms to me mean to a different culture? It doesn't necessarily mean what I know it to mean. So, and we kept in touch, and through chance I've had the opportunity to be here a couple of times. So we just kept kind of battering away with ideas and thoughts. And then it was literally about, I would say, 8 months ago that Melina said, okay, listen, this is what I would like to do. This is where I see this collaboration going. And it really was then about what we're discussing here now, which is that kind of the synergy between that kind of arts and culture pot from the UK, and to work with the same here. So we were kind of put into a great little meeting, having seen the Batihio Theatre as well for the very, very first time, which was beautiful. It's such a lovely little theatre. It's so charming, and I love it. And you just kind of think, let's do something here. Let's just do something. And it was, and again, I have to say, I mean, Melina's taking a massive gamble, but she's bringing together the most extraordinary kind of resources, and working with TrakArt Pop's orchestra, which is, I believe, the only Pop's orchestra in Cyprus.
Yeah.
They are amazing.
So much. It's just an energy about them, isn't there?
Absolutely.
You could watch them all night.
Absolutely. And then again, this goes back to remembering what it was like 30 years ago, when you get a group of people who want to be together, who want to do something, and just enjoy making music. So to be able to then to go, okay, well, why don't we bring some West End singers? They're my chums, but to other people, they're like, oh my God, you're
Yeah.
bringing someone from who's played Christine Daae. You're bringing someone who's played Jane Seymour from Six, the musical. You know, you're bringing someone who's just been in this incredible production of Oklahoma. And another girl who's worked with me on many occasions with Les Mis and Phantom. And then there's me.
The Phantom himself.
And all of that. Let's do something. And of course, Aris, who is I suppose he's the kind of the founder of the orchestra, or the conductor, I suppose, the maestro. He was just like, to see his enthusiasm, to kind of go, oh my God, we're going to get to be this little pot of extraordinary moment. And it is an extraordinary moment. And for us as well, as British performers, to come here and work with the Cypriot Orchestra, you know, you just think, well, that's brilliant. Because I think any immersion into any culture just makes you a better human. It gives you a better understanding of the world. But right now, don't we all just need a better understanding of how the world works? And why do we just need to work together a lot more? And I think that this is a good start. You know, and I do think it's getting a little bit of interest as well from kind of government support as well from Cyprus.
And
as
it's Arts Without Borders, isn't it? It's just like bringing communities together and doing something in Cyprus that many of us fly abroad to do.
That's the thing. So it is very much bringing London's West End here.
Amazing, yeah.
So we have this great little project called West End and Beyond, that we are bringing to Cyprus in January. And we are favouring 4 incredible shows, which will be The Phantom of the Opera, which obviously I've had a very long relationship with. More recently as well, which I never thought I would, never returned to the role in London's West End, but I did earlier this year. Obviously Les Misérables, which I've had a very long relationship with. Frozen.
No.
Yes.
Oh,
I know.
That's too exciting. I'm devastated that my niece is over Frozen because I absolutely love it. She's over it now.
No.
She's only 7.
Shocking.
She's moved on to Encanto or something now.
Oh, Encanto is brilliant.
She loves that.
That is brilliant, actually. Well, we are doing a bit of Disney as well because TrakArt was involved with a brilliant Disney concert some time ago. And I believe that was just brilliant. So I said, well, we have to do some of that again. It'd be lovely to do that. So you never know. You can tell your niece that we might do.
Oh no, I'm bringing her for sure.
She has no choice.
She has no choice.
You're coming with me.
She needs a pot.
And Wicked, which is one of my favourite. Would you believe one of my favourite musicals? But when you've got a group of 3 incredible singers, so I'm bringing Holly Ann Hull, who's just finished as Christine Daae in London's West End. And actually, I got to work with Holly when I went back into the show in March of this year. She's just brilliant. She's just brilliant. A great singer and a great person as well. We've got Lauren Byrne, who has just finished playing Miss Honey in Matilda in London's West End. So she'll be coming with us. She's actually bringing her partner, George Madison, who's just been in this incredible production, immersive production of Oklahoma. Then a girl called Olivia Brereton, who I've hauled around the world doing concerts, but we've kind of first met when we did Phantom of the Opera on tour. Great singer, and she's been in Les Mis a lot as well. So we're going to, as much as we possibly can, sing our little hearts out to an audience that wants to be there, you know. We're not forced, dragged along.
No, but you know, Cypriots now, I mean, to think that now whenever a Cypriot goes to London, they will go to West End show. I mean, that, for me, that in itself is an achievement because 20 years ago, it wasn't the case. It wasn't on the forefront of their mind.
No.
So you see, there is an evolution.
There is.
And I mean, because I know that TrakArt are a non-profit foundation, but I mean, to have these young musicians with so much energy on stage carrying this message through, because they obviously, a lot of them are involved in other bands as well, so they're in the music scene. And then obviously, I know that Funraising, the charity organisation, is involved in this event as well. I just think it's bringing everything together
Yeah,
in a celebration
it
of
is.
something historical.
Yeah, and I also think it is. I mean, I think it serves a greater picture as well. You know, I really do, and I think it's ambassadorial. You know, it really is that collaboration between two very strong entities. You know, Cyprus and the United Kingdom. You know, and that's a partnership, obviously, that has been present here for a very long time, and I just think it just made sense to be able to be a part of that, and also to bring you know, something that you don't have to fly all
No.
the way to England. And I get it, it's not, you know, it is a concert at the end of the day. We don't have all of the incredibleness of West End, you know, sets and stuff like that.
But you
But
picked the best of the bunch, and
indeed,
that's what's nice,
yes,
isn't it?
indeed I have. It's a good group, as a good group of singers, you know, and I think we've got a nice selection, and there'll be a few other little bits and pieces in between, and stuff like that in between the bigger sections. But I just think it's going to be fun. It'll be fun for us as well, and
Of
that's what's
course.
always lovely about doing these types of projects. Not only these guys get, because there's 3 of them that have never been to Cyprus before. Okay, it's January, you know.
Well, that's why I was looking at the dates. Actually, no, they're great, the dates, because the 6th of January is a big holiday in Cyprus. So most people are around on those days, and it's just after Christmas. So
Yeah,
everyone's slumped and
Yep,
anticlimax.
absolutely.
And it's celebratory, and you've got matinees as well, haven't
Yep,
you?
we have
So
indeed.
8:30, 4:30, and it means that people have something to look forward
Yeah.
to after Christmas,
I
which
think
is
so.
great.
Yeah, and again for us as well, because that ironically that time of year is usually terrible for theatre. If you're not in a job, i.e., you haven't done your panto session, you know, over that chapter, you do kind of go. But it will be great. So I'm literally flying from Monte Carlo, having done Phantom there, to here to do West End and beyond, which would be great. And then from here, I then go to China, because we've got a very big event going on in China. And then end of January, it all starts. Literally.
What happens? Tell me about that, because I remember
Well,
my sister used to get really low at the end of a production because you
Absolutely.
bond with these people, don't you? I mean, after
Well,
this,
yeah, I don't. I mean, they're just, you know, people. They're just like people I work with. Yeah, okay, bye. Oh, Michelle, I'll call you. Yeah. No, that's not going to happen.
I think you better be nice, because you need to keep coming
Well,
back every
this is
year.
the thing. Yes, no.
It's about Bill. I know you're joking.
I know. No, it is very much. And it is, and this is the thing. I would love us to be able to make more of this, and I would love this to give also, you know, Melina the confidence to do what she does in the most incredible way, but to grow it. You know, there are educational aspects of this that we do want to grow. We want to go down that road of, can we provide a platform that is giving people a very clear directive in respect to how do you achieve a career in musical theatre? You know, how can you get to London, you know, and audition, or can we establish something here that you can audition here for a show in London? Because there are things like this that we've been discussing, you know, and this really is a kind of precursor to all of that. So I think, you know, this will be great. I do believe this will be successful, and I do think a lot of people will come and see it. And again, it's that thing about, I know that you know, there's you have quite a significant Chinese contingent on the island. They love Phantom of the Opera, you know, and it's just trying to get everyone together, because the great thing about, yes, theatre can be political sometimes, but actually it's just a great place to meet, and it's a great place to be, and it's kind of, you can really check everything at the, you know, at the front of the theatre, leave it all there, and come in and just get escorted to somewhere that's
transported to another world.
Lovely,
isn't it?
There you go.
And you might not know this actually, but now I'm going to show my age. I think 30 years ago, when you were just about starting your career, we did in the Battijo Theatre, with Melina and the Astasi, we did musical moments. And can you imagine, we were filling theatres as amateurs, just kids.
That's amazing.
So there is a
Yeah.
love for musicals.
Yeah.
And to think that now you're doing this with the professionals from the West End, for me, just shows the journey we've been on. And it's absolutely brilliant news.
Also, I think it's something you said earlier as well, which is interesting. You know, we spoke about movies, but a lot of musicals now, particularly in the last 10 years, have also been turned into movies. So they're a lot more accessible now,
course,
you know, and so that kind of understanding of what a musical is, because there are some places, you know, I do a lot of work with China, but there is only a small population or small percentage who know what a musical is, and that is indicative of many regions still, you know, just some audiences, or you know, who may go and see opera, who may go and see ballet or that type of thing, have never really experienced a musical.
Okay. Now, this has been a very different podcast, obviously, because you're new to Cyprus, but you will be back when you're old to Cyprus, and then I can ask you all the questions again.
Older.
No, but I wanted to ask you, I mean, just obviously this I will put all the links available on the podcast for people. But I did want to ask you, we've covered prospects for sort of theatre and arts and culture in Cyprus a little bit. We've touched on it. Things are getting better. I just wanted to ask you, in the limited time that you've been here, do you have sort of an impression of the island? Has it left you with a feeling? If you had to describe Cyprus in 3 words, what would they be for you now?
Gosh, do you know, that depends on what part of the island you're on.
Oh,
Sorry.
right. That's all right. Let's start with Limassol then. And be nice, because the studio's in Limassol.
No, it's what I find really interesting about Cyprus is it doesn't matter where you go. You get aspects of traditionalism. You get aspects of new money. You get aspects of you know, a right hodgepodge of culture, and it is very interesting. But even walking around Limassol, you know, you can go to the marina, which I love. You know, there's a bar, I can't remember the name of it, but you sit down the front and you just look across, and it just looks like you're in Dubai. And then you do 2 streets up, and then you're in really old, kind of very dusty. It's like you're being transported back in time, and I love that. And I wish there was more of that, actually. What I think about Cyprus, it's that you kind of want it to be. I think Cyprus is exciting because it feels like many other places were, like I said, some time ago. It's almost a blank canvas to a degree. And I think that's what makes it really interesting, which is why I think this relationship as well for doing West End and beyond is really important, because it feels like we're kind of just re-establishing a platform again, a foundation. And I think that goes to any company also that might be thinking about coming to Cyprus. I've just spent the weekend up in the mountains, up in Troodos, and it's amazing up there.
Contrast and versatility. There's a bit of everything, isn't there?
It is, and you understand that, because it is a tiny island. I mean, what is there? 800,000.
Just over.
Which you kind of go, okay. Well, from a monetary perspective, that's not a lot of income for the government to be able to do stuff with, and I get that. And you kind of see that in certain areas, but then you see some of these little tiny towns where the local mayors have really kind of got together and kind of gone, and we need to make something of our little village, and you see that, and that's exciting. And then you can, if you don't want all the windy roads and all of that and the snakes and stuff, you then come down here and you're literally smack around the head with something completely different.
Yeah.
Same as when you go to Ioannapis, same as when you go to Paphos. There is such a spectrum here but
like
it
that
feels
word,
like it hasn't reached its potential yet, which you can only look at as that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's exciting. We know it's strategically in the most incredible place, incredible part of the world. So to imagine what this is like, it'd be very interesting to see what this place is like in 20 years' time, particularly when you see, even the small amount of time I've been coming here, for 2 years now, I've seen little things just starting to take shape, starting to solidify, starting to kind of just really get itself together. And I know there's a lot of education involved with that. There's a lot of enticing people to kind of, look, you can have much more interesting things as well as your traditional, because that's what I also like about Cyprus. It's not all about, well, let's go westernized, let's do this and that. It's still very much, it holds its history, I think, at the forefront of all of this, and I think that's what's really important. But I do think as a Westerner, given the opportunity to come to somewhere like this, and it is, I am given the opportunity, and I do hope it's one that I can do sensitively, but also, if there are people that are interested in wanting to go into musicals, and I'm hoping that the incredible work that the foundation and Melina and the theatre are doing, I do hope that they will support it, because if we don't, we have this problem in the UK. It's not just here, but if the local community doesn't support its theatre, that theatre will go.
Yeah.
And that would be a crying shame. So I challenge everybody in Cyprus, Brits and all, support theatre, because it is the most incredible. As I said to you at the very, very beginning of this, as a child struggling with the world back then, it was a very non-judgmental environment, and it was a very safe space to be. So I think if you can get that, even if you got that from theatre, I think it's worth giving it as much attention as possible.
Wow. Thank you. I'm going to end on that note, because that is a fantastic message to close with. Thank you, Earl.
No, it's
Honestly,
been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
It's been a very exciting podcast for me, because I love my hometown. I was in London for 11 years and I moved back here, and I want to change. And obviously you don't want to lose your authenticity, but you want to see progress, and you want to see talent staying home. You don't want to keep losing talent to other countries. Artists, anybody involved in arts and culture and theatre, they need to be encouraged to stay here, and they need opportunities. So this is the start of something magical, I'm sure. So thank you very much.
Pleasure.
And I will say to all of you, the links will be under the website. So it's West End and Beyond in concert in January at Batigio in Limassol. And hopefully we'll be seeing you on an annual basis. But Elle, thank you very much for wanting to play your part in making history in Limassol.
Thank you very much. It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you. Thank you, everybody. See you next time. Destination Cyprus, brought to you by Cybarco.